All right, so it's recording right now. So like I said, we're gonna start. Thank you everybody for letting me know which part of the program you guys are at. Definitely for some of you, this will be information that kind of could set your mind, set the tone as you're heading into practicum or winding down practicum. For some of you, you're at the early stages of your program, but this could be something that you just look forward to, right? Something that motivates you on the way to coming down to the end of the program. So like I said, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get right in. At any point in time, if you have a question, you could just put it in the chat box. And if I see it, I'll go through, I'll be looking at it, and we'll definitely answer those questions, okay? All right, so just a brief introduction about me. So like Guillermo said, I did open my own virtual private practice. It's called Evolving You. And I opened right before COVID. So I had the vision that I wanted to go online, go virtually. And so I was able to register it and open it and set it up right before COVID hit. I'm also a national certified counselor, so that's my NCC certification, as well as I got my certified traumatologist certification. And while I was at Barry, I did the dual program. So I did mental health as well as marriage and family therapy. All right, so this is a quote: knowing others is wisdom. Knowing yourself is enlightenment. I want you to kind of think about that quote and then tell me what you think it means.
Tell me.
Anybody could feel free to share just what they think this quote means.
I think for me personally, while being in this program, I've discovered a sense of self mastery and knowing a lot about myself. So for me, it's a gift that as I study and as I get deeper into the program, I'm learning on others and behaviors and the way they think, but I'm also discovering a lot about myself. So I think it's a sense of enlightenment as well as I go through the program.
I love that. Anybody else?
Yes, I agree. And I also love the way it kind of interconnects. As we know others and learn wisdom, we gain our own understanding and awareness of ourselves, importantly. It's beautiful.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Leslie. I found that this was a very fitting quote, especially as persons in the mental health field, right? We definitely always are concerned about our clients and our clients doing the work and our clients, reaching their sense of enlightenment or having all of this insight. But a lot of times we overlook ourselves doing the work. We overlook ourselves continuously growing and molding and in fact being in tune with our own journey, and that is also important. So I'm going to have you remember this quote as we continue throughout this short session, because this is definitely the crux of it, right? This is, doctors have their instruments, they have their tools, they will have their scalpel, and lawyers, they also have different tools that they use. And similar to lawyers, our main tool is our minds, right? And so we have to always be careful that we don't allow our tool to become dull. We have to always sharpen our tool. We have to always recognize that we have to keep updated, keep in tune with who we are, and keep growing and keep nurturing ourselves. So I want you, like I said, to remember this quote, because this will be the foundation. All right. So my kind of personality, I'm a person that I love engagement. Okay. So here again, I really want you guys to be in tune with the presentation. I want you guys to participate. And this color wheel, I want you to think of one color that represents your most authentic self. And then I want you to think of a second color that is the self that you portray to others, right? So take a moment, think of those two colors, and think what each color represents, okay? While you think about that, I'll give an example. For me, I would say that I'm green, right? My authentic self is green. I'm warm, I'm lively, right? Nature. And I am always giving, right? Mother Earth, always giving. But the self that I may portray, that may be brown. It may be a bit standoffish. It may be hard, right? It may be not so warm, kind of rough, right? And so what is happening there? There's a conflict, right? So I want someone to share with me their two colors. And I want two persons to share their two colors, tell us what they mean, and then we'll just kind of discuss it a little bit.
I can share. This is Melody. So for my true self, a color for my true self, I guess it would be pink, because like I really love I really love pink as a color, but also because I am all about love and positivity, and like, I don't know, I'm just, whenever I think of me being a color, I think pink. But the color I guess people see, like, or the color that represents me, I guess, would be black, because I do a lot of work in the Black community, being that I'm Black, and also like I always wear black. I'm always wearing black. People ask me all the time, why are you always wearing black? And I joke around and tell them that it's just to represent my soul. but honestly, it's just because I don't know. I don't know. I guess black would be the one that I portray to others, and pink is really who I really am inside. Like just this sensitive, loving, and caring person.
Right. Right. Wow. That was so good, Melody. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Anybody else want to share their two colors?
So like Melody, I think my first color would be pink.
Okay.
Because I also relate this color like to love, to fun, to girly things, things that for me is more of my, it represents my true self. I mean, just like Melody was explaining. But then the other color that I chose was white, which is, I'm thinking that white's kind of like neutral. Like you present yourself, okay, but then I think it's not really up to yourself for, to kind of decide, because people are kind of, how do you say, they're the ones that are deciding, like, what are you? They're like thinking, trying to figure you out in some sort of way. So I just say, okay, white, whatever it is you think of me, let's see if you're right about that or not. Kind of like first impression kind of things. Like I don't want to be imposing or anything onto someone. Like, hey, this is me. No, just taking it easy, just getting to know people and stuff like that. So yeah, that was my thought about that.
Wow. Thank you so much, Beth. So again, this color wheel, right? For those who may have just joined us, we were looking at two colors. We were choosing two colors. One color being your authentic self, and what does that mean? What does that represent? And the second color being a color that you are portrayed as. What do other people see you as, right? And why did I even bring this up? Why do I make you kind of stop and think about who you truly are, your most authentic self, and then who you portray yourself to be? I do that because the more distance, the more space there is between the two, the more anxiety there's going to be, right? The more issues and problems that are going to arise because you're not being your most authentic self. And what does this have to do with journey into the field? Well, we'll see. So now we're talking about practicum. Are you guys seeing the little box with all of your faces?
It depends. Are you talking about, can they see each other?
Yeah.
It depends how they have it set up, the view they have it on.
Okay, because I wanted to see you guys, but I didn't want it obstructing the PowerPoint. But if
Oh,
you get
it's not. We just see your PowerPoint in whatever view we have set up.
perfect. Okay. So now we have practicum, right? For those of you who are going into practicum, that experience, I want you to really be open-minded, right? This is your time, like I say, to learn and to make mistakes. This is your time to ask questions. You know, a lot of people right before practicum, there's a lot of nervousness. There's a lot of anxiety about, oh my God, I'm going to see real human beings now. I could probably damage them, right? I had a professor tell us that you can't break a client. They're coming in because they're already broken, right? And so the most you can do is just hold the space for them. So the thing about practicum is really about being open-minded. It's about diving in, choosing a site that's not just out of convenience. Oh, well, this site is close to my home, but choosing a site that you think you can really learn and benefit from, right? Choosing a site that may specialize in something that you never really thought about, or something that you didn't think would be your niche, but you want to expose yourself to it. Now, why do I say that? I say that because, to share my own practicum experience, I chose Trauma Resolution Center. I wanted nothing to do with trauma when I first started the program, right? I completely just wanted to see families and that's it. But going to that center showed me so much stuff that I didn't know about and that I didn't learn in our actual program, right? And that's what these sites are. They're like on-the-job training. They're teaching you additional skills that you would probably just hear about in the program or probably know a little about, but here's the time you get that in-depth study. You get to be hands-on. And so I'd recommend to anybody when it comes time for practicum to choose a site that is going to challenge you. This isn't about a cakewalk, right? If you do the hardest thing in your practicum, when you're done and you get cases that aren't as difficult, it'll be more simple for you. Does that make sense? Rather than, oh, well, I'll play it safe. And then you go into the field and you get hit with something that's really big and you don't know how to manage it, right? So definitely, I encourage all of you, when thinking about practicum sites, be open-minded, look for something that will challenge you. It doesn't matter the distance, and also just ask a lot of questions. The other thing I want you to be aware of, going back to your color, right, is know who you are. You have to know who you are as a person, but you also have to know who you are as a clinician. And it's during this practicum phase that you really form your identity as a clinician. And a lot of times you're going to be in a room with other, colleagues, and you may see other person's styles, right? And that's okay. Know that it's okay that your style isn't the exact same as your colleague's style, and be okay with that, right? And change and mold and look at your style and see how you best connect with clients. Definitely, I know when I first went into practicum, my first night, I was so petrified, right? I was nervous. I actually full-blown had a panic attack. And it had to come down to my supervisor just being like, what's going on here? Like, you've done the work. you did all the work until this time. You know what you have to do. So what's going on? And once I saw that first client, it was like, sigh of relief. I'm comfortable. I got this, right? But the build up to that was, oh my gosh, I'm seeing all of my colleagues going in and they seem to know what they're doing. And oh my God, what I know what I'm doing. And you have this internal dialogue. And it's almost like, what's going on with me, right? It's almost like I have to be perfect. And you don't. Practicum is the one time you don't have to be perfect. You can make those mistakes. Okay. The other thing I want to remind you guys, start during practicum, create a network, okay? In your program itself, have discussions about what are your plans, right? With your colleagues, what are your plans after we graduate? What field do you want to specialize in? When you go to these sites, you're meeting colleagues from different schools as well. And have these conversations with them, ask them, what are their plans? What do they want to do after? Create groups, right? If you're all looking at one demographic, create groups surrounding that demographic so that you are creating a network for after graduation. Because definitely a lot of times what happens is persons graduate and now there's no one to turn to. There's no teacher to call. There is no supervisor to ask, right? And it feels quite lonely once you graduate because you're like, okay, now what? What's the next steps? Who do I turn to? And this is why a network is so important, right? You have to create a network so that not only when you're looking for jobs, but also if you do go into private practice, you have a network of referrals, right? Because that's the name of the game in counseling, getting referrals. And so even if you have a friend that isn't necessarily in your niche, still keep in contact with them. Because if you get a client that is not your niche, you now have someone to refer them to, and vice versa. So this is something that I really want to emphasize, that building your network during this practicum experience is very, very crucial and very important. You know, a lot of times we graduate and everybody starts doing their own things and we lose touch. But you have to make an effort to keep in contact with people, add persons on LinkedIn, add them on social media, and reach out every once in a while, not just when you want something, right? But reach out every once in a while to keep that relationship going and know that this is my network. Hey, we're forming a group so that we have a pool to kind of go into when we need something, we need help, we need peer counseling, right? That's also something that's really important during this time, having peers that you can go to talk to about sometimes a really heavy client. You know, you need that system because of the nature of our profession. We can't just talk to our spouse about it, right? We can't talk to our significant other. We can't talk to our parents about it. So they wouldn't fully understand how it pulls and sometimes drains us. They wouldn't fully comprehend that. But if you have a group, if you have a network that you can turn to that are of like mind, right? Like-minded, and also in the same profession, they will more be able to rally around you, and they'll more be able to help you in those tough times. All right. Competition. I thought it important to put this in, right? That after graduation, even in practicum, sometimes there is a level of competition that starts to brew amongst, you know, your fellow colleagues and you know, different classmates. It's almost like people sense we're at the end and sometimes become a bit protective of their ideas or protective of, you know, whatever ventures that they're going into. But I really want to remind you guys that your biggest competition is always going to be yourself, right? And that's why it's so important for you to know who you are as a clinician, as well as just who you are as a person, away from that identity of being a clinician, right? So when you see, graduation is coming up and persons are, starting their own businesses, and persons are, getting big jobs and all of these things, you recognize who you are, and you recognize that I don't have to see this niche just because everybody else is doing it. I know the niche that I love working with. I know the niche that I'm passionate about, right? And so you are your biggest competition, just seeing how you can improve on self, seeing how you can grow as a clinician and continue working. Know that and remind yourself that, right? That different persons' journeys are different. And so there are going to be times that you may feel like, oh, I'm behind, right? I'm not keeping up with the pace of everybody else. But know that you're different, your journey is different, and that you are only trying to progress, right? There's a huge difference between perfection and progression. And perfection is very subjective, right? But progression, you could always work towards progressing, becoming a better version of yourself each and every time you counsel and see a client, each and every time you do a project. That is what you have to bear in mind as you're approaching the end of your program and even after graduation. And so bear in mind that some people may have this kind of competitive spirit, and that's okay. But going back to the slide above, you still have to bear a network, have a network that you can support you, that there's no sense of competition, but instead we are creating a pool for referrals and resources. All right, supervision. This is probably one of the biggest things that I want everyone to bear in mind when it comes time to graduate. Supervision. Now, when you're working towards your licensure, the biggest part about it is those supervision hours. Now, a lot of times persons tend to, if they go to work for an agency, the agency may have a supervisor in-house. And that's fine, right? You have your supervisor in-house. Now, the thing about it is, you may have a supervisor in-house that you don't have to pay for, which is great for your pocket. But I would always suggest that you have 2 supervisors. Now, why am I saying have 2 supervisors? Let's paint the scenario that you're working at a mental health facility. There's a supervisor in-house. And for some reason, let's say the 2 of you disagree on something, right? Or they are doing something or asking you to do something that you deem unethical, right? And so now there's friction. Who do you turn to? Who do you ask a second opinion? Who do you, go to if something is really bothering you about that supervisor that's in-house? There's no one, because everybody else is in-house, right? And so there's this kind of conflict that happens there. Also, if things get bad enough, if things escalate and they terminate supervision, what's going to happen with your hours, right? So bear these things in mind. Even though you may go to an interview and everyone's putting on their best behavior and everyone's showing their best front, right? Things happen. And sometimes we, even if 2 persons, have the well intentions, sometimes we simply just disagree. And so to protect yourself, to protect your hours, having 2 supervisors, even though you may have to pay, is always the safest thing. And having them on at the beginning. So as soon as you graduate, and I would always suggest that you start your application for registered intern while you're in, that last semester of the program, because you want that as soon as you graduate, all you have to do is upload the transcript. And so the process will go a lot more smoothly if you've already done the application and all you have to do is upload that transcript, right? And there's a part in that application that talks about supervision. So what you want to do is start looking for a supervisor. It could be one of our Barry supervisors, right? Dr. Machuca, Dr. Reyes, Dr. Shore, or it could be someone who's not at Barry, right? Who you deem is, reputable and a good supervisor, a good peer with you. But you want to look, especially in that last year of the program, you want to look for someone who you would deem a good supervisor that you have. And then you'll have your second one on your site if you're going into a site after graduation. And have both of them registered in that application from the very beginning. Why do I stress from the beginning? Because if you try to add a supervisor after the fact, right? So let's use that same example, right? Of the supervisor in-house and terminate supervision, right? And you've lost all of those hours. You can't try to add a supervisor now at that point and then ask them to sign off on those hours that you did previously. They won't be able to do that. They could only sign off on hours that they've been your supervisor for. So if you had that person from the beginning, even though the one in-house terminates, your second supervisor can still sign off on all of those hours. So you save those hours, right? And this is very important. So like I said, always try and protect yourself when it comes to supervision, and try to have more than one supervisor if possible, just to protect yourself. It may not be a conflict that happened, but life happens. We're living in a pandemic, and sometimes people get sick, right? So your supervisor may simply just get sick and may not be able to sign off. You need to have a second person that can, and that can protect you and support you. All right, so that's supervision. Does anyone have any questions thus far, or are we good? No? Okay, all right. Okay, so I'm just gonna briefly share my journey with you, and hopefully you guys can learn from it. So I did my NCC, right? My National Certified Counselor. And that is basically where you do the mental health licensure exam, and you are able to graduate with that credential of NCC. Now, why am I telling you guys this? Because a lot of times we graduate the program and we're only a registered intern, right? We don't have our licenses yet. And this could kind of limit you on what you can and can't do just being a registered intern. However, if you have an NCC credential, that opens your scope so much more than just being a registered intern in terms of what you can and can't do as a clinician. So my advice would definitely be, I know Dr. Reyes through the care center, she always kind of advertises it, right? That a group of them are going to do this exam. I would always encourage you guys when you're in your practicum period, right? The exam is usually right after comps or right around the same time as comps. So don't do them together. Please don't do them together. I've had friends that did them together and then they failed the NCC exam, right? Because they're two different exams. The comps wants you to be very detailed. It wants you to support your evidence. It wants you to dig deep and think about all of the different sides of a case, right? But this licensure exam, you have to approach it with a completely different mindset. It's just what they give you and the bare minimum. When I say the bare minimum, just what's accurate and what's correct, and that's it, right? So don't try to juggle both of them in the same semester if you can, but definitely I would do them one after the next. So as soon as you start practicum, try and see if you can do that comps exam, or if you have to do the NCC exam first, and then do the other one, right? So that way, by the time you graduate, you're graduating not just with a master's degree, but you're also a certified counselor, right? Which adds so much value to your resume, but not just your resume, to your pocket, right? So try and avoid some mistakes that a lot of my colleagues did. A lot of them graduated and then after tried to do the NCC, which made it a lot more difficult. They had to pay more money. They, had to do it multiple times. Whereas once you go through Barry has a system in place that you're able to join a group, get it at a discounted rate, and you're able to, just get a lot of guidance with Dr. Reyes in terms of going through that exam. So that's the NCC. After graduation, I went to a private practice. I got a job at a private practice. And that experience for me was really good experience in terms of seeing the private practice side of things. Definitely, if you do practicum in a nonprofit, I'd encourage you to, try and switch it up. You want to know all the different sides, right? In our program, they don't teach us about business. Straight point. They don't, right? In fact, they tell you, hey, if you're coming into this profession to make money, ha 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 ha, funny, right? But we have to start thinking about business. We have to start providing for ourselves and our families. So you want to get as much exposure to different fields as possible, right? So if you do practicum in a nonprofit, but your long-term goal is to open your own private practice, wouldn't you want to see what the workings of a private practice looks like, right? So I would encourage you to put out feelers, right? And interview for jobs in a private practice so that you at least have that exposure to what is their admin side like, what is their process like, so that you could then build your own templates on what that looks like for when it comes time for you to do it. So that's what I did. I was able to work at this private practice, got a lot of additional information that I didn't get working at a nonprofit. And then I was able to then transition into my own private practice online, like I said. Now, a lot of persons ask me, hey, DJ, like, I want to go into private practice, and they're hurry and like racing to go and do this. It is not easy to go. Okay, Guillermo is like, nope, to go into private practice. Okay, it's not easy. And I would encourage anyone to get that experience first of working in a private practice before being like, oh, I'm superhuman, right? I'm going to do this all myself, because that is what it is, all yourself for a majority of the time, until you can then delegate and get staff and all this stuff. You're the secretary, you're the counselor, you're everything, right? And so if you know that for you right now, all you want is a 9 to 5, private practice isn't for you, right? At least not yet, because private practice is 24 hours. You're constantly thinking about what I need to do next. What do I need to do? What content I need to create? How do I get clients? Right? But if you're someone that you want stability and you want to, build yourself as a counselor, build your confidence in yourself still after graduation, I definitely encourage you to work at, a nonprofit or work at a private practice first before just rushing into private practice, because it is a lot of work. Okay, get certified. So bad news, guys, after you graduate, you still need more school. Right? It's so liberating to wear that cap and gown and to walk and cross that stage, and well, now in COVID land, see your face and your name flash across the screen. But it's so, it's a freeing feeling that you've done these 3-4 years and you're able to, complete this degree, and it's amazing, and you worked hard, and you know what? Clap for yourself, support yourself, give yourself at least a month to kind of relax, detox, because school is a lot. Give yourself that time to recover, right? But I want to stress certification. Even if you don't want to go into a doctoral degree, know your niche and get certified in it. If you like working with clients with grief, get a grief certification. If you like clients working with trauma, do like me, become a certified traumatologist, right? Don't just hold on to your master's, because a master's is not enough, not anymore. A master's has become now like a bachelor's, right? It's like everybody has a master's, but now how do you distinguish yourself in the crowd? How do you say, yeah, I may have a master's, but I am an expert in this particular field? Get certifications, right? If you like working with couples, Gottman Institute, right? He has his own specialized certification course. So sign up for that and become a certified Gottman, counselor. So know exactly what your niche is. Again, that goes back to knowing who you are, right? Because we have to recognize that, yes, you can be everybody's therapist, right? General, I see everybody for everything, right? But that leads a lot to burnout. When you're working with a client that isn't fueling your passions, it takes a lot more energy out of you. And so when you know who your market is, when you know who your ideal client is, it will feel like it's not even work, right? When you're seeing only your ideal clients and you're marketing yourself to that, it feels like it's not even work. So get certified in a particular, niche, stick with it, and become an expert. That's definitely one of my recommendations, to get certified. Okay, so we were talking about burnout, right? Ah, boy, like I said, that knife getting dull, right? Our brains getting dull. When we have absorbed so much, pain, so much suffering, so much grief, there comes a level of compassion fatigue there, right? And so I don't want us to underestimate the power of self-care. If you're like most counselors, I think, we're empaths, right? We feel deeply. And because we feel deeply, we feel those intense emotions just as much as we feel those, euphoric emotions. And so you need to know when you're coming to a place that your cup is full and you just can't take anymore. And you have to be honest with yourself. I know when I was in the program at Barry, I got burnt out during the program at Barry, right? Because I was trying to do so many different things. I was in so many different associations, so many different commitments I had, right? Doing practicum, all these things. And so you get burnt out. But I kept telling myself, hey, you know what? After I graduate, I'll do self-care then. I'll do it then. That's a lie. That's a lie, right? Because if anything, it's after graduation. That's when the true pressure is on, right? That's when you're really becoming a counselor and forming your own name for yourself. And so you have to start putting self-care practices now. You have to practice it now while you're in the program, even when you're tired, even when it seems like self-care is just another thing to do. You have to practice giving yourself those boundaries even now while you're in this program, so that when it comes time for graduation, you've already built a system. You've already built, something, a structure that works for you, right? So that you don't have to now try and figure it out while you're working, while you're, working at that nonprofit that's until 10 p.m. in the night, right? So definitely, I want you to pay attention to self-care. Know your needs and know what exactly restores you, right? Again, that goes back to just knowing who you are. And yes, you may see people working constantly and they look fine. That's them. know who you are and know what you need and know what you can handle, right? Because definitely a lot of counselors, they burn out and then they leave the field because they didn't take adequate self-care when they needed it, right? But if you are taking that self-care throughout your journey, throughout your process, throughout your week, right? Even 5 minutes a day to just do a quick meditation on Headspace. If you're doing that, then you're sustaining your career. You're giving your career more a long life, right? In terms of you're now allowing yourself to sharpen that knife. You're now giving yourself the time that you tell your clients to get, right? Sometimes we have to be our own counselors to ourselves and give ourselves a wake-up call. You're telling your client to do self-care, but you're not doing it. So are they supposed to do as you say and not as you do, right? We have to give ourselves that time to really do self-care, as well as talking about self-care, our own mental care, right? I spoke about peer counseling, but also seeing your own therapist is very important. Having that, it may not have to be a weekly thing, it could be a once a month check-in depending on your needs, but having an outlet where you can just come and take it all off your shoulders. We are human too. People forget that. We forget that, but we are human too. Okay, so we need to refill our cups and then we can then pour out into others. All right, so these are some websites. I'm going to go through them really quickly that I want you guys to take note of because they were really helpful to me. So I'm going to click on each one, show you what the page kind of looks like, and then if you want to screenshot this page, or yeah, I guess you can screenshot the page. Just definitely write down these websites because they were really helpful. So the first one, counseling exam. This is the website for the NCC certification. Okay, so the exam is really called the NCMHCE exam. But once you finish that exam, you will now have the qualifications to become an NCC, a nationally certified counselor, as well as use those same scores for your licensing for mental health, right? So it's a dual purpose exam if you take it whilst a Barry student, okay? So that's this exam. And like I said, Dr. Reyes, you can go to her and talk to her about it in the care center. You only need to sign up for this exam in your last semester of the Barry program. So if you're still early in the program, don't worry about it as yet, okay? Then let's go back. The next one, this is a website to bear in mind as well. This is where you will come to register for your registered mental health intern, registered marriage family therapy intern, right? You'll apply, you'll click this link to apply for that registration. And like I said, don't wait until you've graduated to then apply. You don't want to graduate, start working, and you're seeing clients, and all of those hours could have, counted, but you didn't apply, and so you have to wait for the application to go through. No, apply. In your last year, you could start the application. It's not a long application, but you could start it. And so when time comes for you to graduate and get that transcript, all you have to do is upload the transcript, and within a few weeks, you're registered, and that's it. Okay. Okay, Canva, don't do me that. The next one is, why are you not clicking now? Okay, I don't know what's going on. Give me 1 second, guys. And I apologize for my neighbor cutting his lawn at this time. All right. So this website that I'm showing you is where you can go and check a supervisor, right? So like I spoke about the importance of supervision. You want someone that you can trust, someone that's ethical, right? And so you can come on this website and just enter in If you know their license number, or if you don't, that's okay. You could enter in their last name and their first name, and that's all the information they really need to pull them up. And okay, let me do it really quickly. Reyes, Sylvia, right? So you can see what this looks like. Search, right? And so you'll find them. She's this one, I believe. No, that's nursing, licensed mental health, right? So this is Dr. Reyes, right? And you could see that she's qualified in. She's qualified to supervise mental health as well as marriage and family. And you also see here, license status. Is she clear, right? Is she active, right? Because again, you don't want someone saying that they could give you supervision, but they don't have board clearance, right? And here you can also see, have they been disciplined for anything? Has there been a public complaint, right? So do your homework. Don't rush into something and create a commitment and then get yourself in trouble because you didn't do your research. Do your research, find them out. Like I said, in your last year, take the time to do all these little things so you're not rushing at the end. And do your research, see, because with a supervisor, you have a supervision agreement. That's a signed document, right? Which you also want to be careful what you sign your name to. You want to make sure and read that document very clearly, see what it's written in there, all of the disclosures, all of the, loopholes that may be there, what you're agreeing to before you have them be your supervisor. All right, this one, this is the MBCC website. So when you do become certified, this is the website that you're able to get, you become a part of their board and you'll get a lot of, it's like their vision of ACA, right? Where you're now at NCC, so you'll have access to their board. And now that we're in a telehealth world, the board also has a telehealth certification. So yes, there are many counselors providing telehealth, but can they say that they're board certified in telehealth? I think not. So that's a certification you'd also want to look into, because again, you're adding credentials to your name that people can say she's an expert, he's an expert. They know what they're talking about, right? So that's one. And let's see what else I have here. Okay, so these last two are just some sites that for trainings and certifications, okay, that I want you to have, because I found them later after finishing and they were really helpful. So this one has free certifications, well, free trainings, but they're trainings that could definitely help benefit your journey, right? As a clinician, give you additional information. So like they have trauma focused CBT, they have attachment, working with parents, they have psychological first aid. All of these are free on this website. So I'd really encourage you to create an account. You could start using this website now, just to, like I said, sharpen your tool, right? And the last one is PESI, which this one is not free, but they do have a great deal of certifications here. Here you will get actual certifications. So let's say, like, there we go, EFIT, right? Emotional focus therapy. Then there's also Gottman therapies here as well. If you want to be certified in some of Gottman's stuff, you can find it here on PESI as well. Okay, so I'm gonna do it, have it big here for you. If you need to screenshot it, like I said, you can screenshot this so that you have those websites, and then you'll be able to check them out as you go through your journey. So in a summary, know who you are, okay? Know who you want to serve, right? Know that you don't have to serve everybody. You can pick a particular population and find your niche and serve them. Form a network during your practicum period. Now is the time to do that. Even if you're before practicum, you have friends in the program, talk about your future ventures, right? See if they're fit for you and keep them close, keep them there to you so that when you graduate, you guys have a plan. Be competitive, but with yourself, right? And the importance of supervision. Like I said, don't only have one supervisor after practicum when you're in that licensure phase of your life, right? Have at least two. Lastly, get certified and remember the importance of self-care. If you want to be a good clinician to your clients, you have to be good to yourself first, right? You have to be good to yourself first. So to give them your best, you have to be your best. Okay. If you have any questions for me, you can follow me on Instagram at evolving_you. You could check out my website. But yeah, feel free to reach out. And any questions, any comments?
This was great. This was really good. I really thank you for sharing all of that because it helps